In Pennsylvania, the implosion of two smokestacks caused damage to nearby homes.
Authorities say several power poles were destroyed, leading to a power surge damaging electrical appliances. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Ilago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
China to revive Joint Coast Guard Committee meeting. Canada adds Philippines to visa-free travel program. Seoul expresses concern over China-Russia air drills. US, UK, and Russian envoys debate over the destruction of Kakhovka Dam. And Mexico's Foreign Secretary Marcelo Ebrard resigns to pursue presidential bid.
The Israeli government offers the Philippines agricultural and water management support to combat El Nino. JD Mahinay for the report.
Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen tells President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. that Manila and Jerusalem could collaborate on water management. The Israeli official notes his country's vast experience in this sector, as 60% of Israel's land is desert. Cohen adds that an Israeli expert can visit the Philippines to provide advice. The president expresses his admiration for Israel's advancement in agriculture. He further stresses that the Philippines is eyeing Israel and Singapore for best agricultural practices that can be imitated. The Marcos administration is assured that enough initiatives are formulated to cushion the possible impact of the long dry spell on the agriculture sector. JD Mahinay reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. reaffirms Filipino-Chinese partnerships to national development. Randy Bernardino for the details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. administers the oath-taking of the new set of officers of the Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Inc., or FFCCCII, in Malacañang Palace. The president commends the federation for its almost 70 years of struggles to bring investments and open various economic initiatives that benefit both the Filipino-Chinese communities and the public.
In behalf of the country, I thank the Federation for having nurtured this relationship and served as a bridge between our two nations.
This month, the Philippines and China mark the 48th formal establishment of their diplomatic relations.
So as part of this administration's agenda, partnerships with the private sector has been actively pursued and nurtured in recognition of this essential role that you play in our development.
The president addresses the strong relations between his administration and the Federation for the benefit of the country.
This is a partnership that my administration will continue to preserve, harness, and enhance so that it may bring forth greater benefits for businesses, our citizens, and the country.
The Federation was established in 1954 as a non-stock, non-profit corporation that unifies commerce and trade associations from all over the country. FFCCCII is also actively involved in the economic, socio-civic, and cultural activities in the country. Randy Bernardino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippine Coast Guard says China is pushing to revive a signed joint committee meeting. Vin Pascua reports.
The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, says that China wants to revive the Joint Coast Guard Committee or JCGC meeting. In 2017, the Philippines and China held a Joint Coast Guard Committee talk in Subic, Zambales. The two parties agreed to strengthen their maritime cooperation to prevent and combat drug trafficking and other transnational crimes. The Philippines and China also discussed search and rescue operations, environmental protection, and emergency response. The Memorandum of Understanding for these training exercises was signed in Beijing last October 2017. Former President Rodrigo Duterte and Chinese President Xi Jinping spearheaded the event. But the PCG says though there were annual meetings in China, there have been no substantial agreements with China regarding the JCGC. PCG further says Coast Guard discussions should be coursed through the Department of Foreign Affairs. The Coast Guard believes that the diplomatic channel is now their means to communicate with their counterparts in China. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Agriculture and a South Korean firm signed a memorandum of understanding on agricultural cooperation. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. witnesses the signing of the amended Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperative Partnership between Korea Agriculture Machinery Industry Cooperative or CAMICO in Malacañang Palace. The MOU serves to boost the country's agricultural cooperation and mechanization by mandating the establishment of a local agricultural machinery manufacturing cluster in the Philippines. The President expresses his gratitude to the CAMICO officials for assisting the Philippines in its goal to further enhance the Republic's agricultural sector. The MOU was first signed last 2018 and was modified in 2019. The pact aims to promote agricultural development between the Philippines and South Korea in terms of modernization and mechanization. CAMICO is a special non-profit cooperative established in 1962. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. extends his praises to overseas Filipino workers with a video message Wednesday. Mikey Suede for the details.
Wednesday, June 7th is celebrated as the Migrant Workers' Day, and President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has a greeting for all overseas Filipino workers.
Today I speak before you with a heart full of gratitude and appreciation because today we celebrate Migrant Workers' Day. We honor our modern-day heroes, our overseas Filipino workers.
The President notes that the government understands the challenges that OFWs face.
That's why this administration will continue to foster stronger ties with countries that host our migrant workers, ensuring your safety, welfare, and well-being.
The President also encouraged OFWs to continue to work hard to build their dreams. The National Migrant Workers' Day was declared as a special non-working holiday by former President Fidel Ramos in 1995. This special day recognizes the contribution of OFWs to the Philippine economy and society. Mikey Suede reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Newly appointed Department of National Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro says the Philippines is not a pawn of any country. He also urged other countries not to question the Philippines' expansion of capabilities in the West Philippine Sea. Martin Liachon has the details.
Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro Jr. asserts that the Philippines is not a pawn of any country in the ongoing geopolitical battle within the region. Chodoro also insists that the Philippines has the right to build up credible deterrence without questions coming from other countries. He also takes into account the order of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. that agreement and cooperation with other countries should be purely for national defense purposes. Although not new to the position, having held the same during former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's administration, Chodoro admits that handling the defense post is more challenging now. He vows to take into account the pronouncements of President Marcos Jr. to not sacrifice the gains on defense.
Territory is our territory. And UNCLOS, the basis of that, cannot be changed by the passage of time nor changes in administrations.
But he says there is a need to build up the Philippines' capabilities to make sure the country is safe from any world happenings or events.
Well, that is the importance of civil defense, no? Which is why the President would like to strengthen the Office of Civil Defense and so that it is not merely a military focus, but a national civil defense focus, no? And that is the first thing, the safety and security of all our people, whether it be from an armed attack, whether it be from terrorism, or whether it be from pandemics. The first and only marching order is the safety and security of our people.
Teodoro says he will continue to lobby Congress for more funds to modernize the armed forces of the Philippines. He further says there is a need to build up the managerial capability of the managing department.
Kailangan din mangakit tayo ng mga kabataan, magpaaral tayo ng ating mga empleyado, mga sundalo at civil service employees to get the best educational opportunities as possible. Because we need that to lay the foundation for a future that our children can be safe.
Martin Leachon, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ottawa announces the inclusion of the Philippines in its Electronic Travel Authorization Program, or ETA. The program allows travelers to engage in business or visit Canada for leisure with visa-free travel. The Canadian Embassy in the Philippines notes that the inclusion of the country in its program is, or as it supports Ottawa in building diplomatic ties with the Indo-Pacific nations. According to the embassy, the public can apply for an ETA with only a valid passport, a credit card, an email address, and access to the internet. The embassy adds the application costs $7 Canadian and is automatically approved within minutes. The Department of Foreign Affairs also released a statement in regard to Canada's ETA program. For 10 years, Canada issued 466,936 temporary resident visas to Filipino citizens.
Madison Avenue in New York City was covered in the colors of the Philippine flag. Groups and spectators lined the streets in what is known as the largest Independence Day parade outside of the Philippines. Net 25's Joanne Soriano has the story.
The 125th Philippine Independence Day parade is taking place along Madison Avenue in New York City.
3, 2, 1, cut the ribbon!
Festivities kicked off with a flag-raising ceremony and ribbon cutting, along with remarks from New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
You kept this city running during COVID. I noticed you, I know who you are. And so let's continue to come together with our diversity as we march down Madison Avenue celebrating the rich culture of this community. I love the Filipino community. Thank you very much.
27th to 38th Streets were lined with spectators eager to show their love for the Philippines.
Because I want to feel how I feel like in the Philippines while I'm here in United States. So I'm here in the Philippine Independence Parade.
I want to celebrate Philippine Independence Day because after 7 years, this is the first time that I, again, after 7 years.
To be a part of a celebration, the largest one of its kind outside of the Philippines, celebrating Philippine independence, it's amazing. And to be able to not only spend it with one of my dear friends, Nina Pineda, but also with my children, to see this and to hand it down to them, I think it was just a perfect day.
Colors of the Philippines filled the streets with people not only waving the flag, but wearing it. Philippine fashion made a statement, from the colorful costumes to traditional Filipiniana to the contemporary. 141 participant groups marched the parade route, including celebrities such as Miss Universe 2022 Arbani Gabriel.
Very impressed with the Filipino-American community here in New York. You can just see that how strong and how lively, and of course, there are over 300,000 Filipino-Americans living here in New York City, and we're all very proud of all of you. Congratulations for this big event.
In New York, Joanne Soriano for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, China and Russia's aerial drills alarm South Korea. UN Security Council elects 5 new non-permanent members. And Iran's embassy in Saudi Arabia reopens after 7 years. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Sama-sama tayong nakikanta, nakipagsaya at nakipag-summer blast. Maraming salamat sa higit na 120,000 na taong nakasama namin. Walang kapantayang energy at init ng suporta na ipinaramdam ninyong lahat sa amin. Hindi rin matatawaran ang galing ng mga performers na nagpasiklab sa isa sa pinakamasasayang gabi dito sa Philippine Sports Stadium. Taos-puso ang pasasalamat namin. Let's always net together, mga Kanet 25, sa susunod na Summer Blast. Catch the special TV airing on June 10 and June 11, 2023. Follow our social media pages for more updates.
Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. 10 nationals of the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, were killed by bombings in Khartoum. In a statement read to the press by the government spokesman, the Congolese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Christophe Lutundula, had learned of the death of 10 nationals killed by bombardments carried out on the International University of Africa in Khartoum. The attacks carried out by the regular army on an area occupied by civilian and unarmed populations, including nationals of foreign countries, have been an area of particular concern for a lot of the residents of the Sudanese capital. The DRC has asked for explanations stemming from the attacks and that all arrangements be made by the Sudanese government so that the bodies are returned for repatriation. In 7 weeks, the war between the Sudanese army and the paramilitaries has left more than 1,800 dead and more than 1.5 million displaced and refugees.
Over 13,000 Sudanese have fled the deadly fighting between the Sudanese army and paramilitaries. They now seek refuge in the neighboring Central African Republic. EJ Gonzalez tells us more.
In Dafok, at the border between Sudan and the Central African Republic, United Nations Refugee Agency's aid workers register Sudanese refugees and provide them with food, water, and shelter. Some of the refugees crossed the border on foot and were brought to the refugee camps. They fear there is no end in sight for the fighting in Sudan. UNHCR aid workers say food, water, and shelter remain to be scarce.
We came here. We're looking for the good place. If we find the good place, the safe place, yeah, we will stay in. And also, we don't know that the time of the war is stopped. So that's why we left. We don't know the time this is stopped. It's very, very hard. It's very hard fighting. So, if we are here in Central Africa or in every country, we will left.
EJ Gonzalez for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Sudan, amid dire medicine shortages, volunteers and medical staff urge international NGOs to provide medical aid. This as Sudanese people wait for medical care inside a makeshift clinic at a school in Niala. Carlo Valdez reports.
Volunteers at a makeshift clinic in South Darfur State Capital say they are facing an alarming shortage in medical supply. From children's medication to antibiotics, to diabetes and blood pressure maintenance meds, to lab stains used in identifying certain conditions. Doctors and health workers are appealing to all charitable organizations, especially those working in the medical field, to provide them with medicines in order to go on with their services. They say that even though there are good medical workers, if there is no medicine, they will still suffer. Carlo Valdez for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
State media KCNA reported a North Korean youth group has donated rocket launchers to the military. The Korean Children's Union, or KCU, said they provided Sunyan rockets to show fervent patriotism to Kim Jong-un's government. KCU promotes the North's political ideology, including juche, or self-reliance. The donation took place on Tuesday with senior ruling party officials attending the event. Last week, North Korea drew international condemnation when it launched its first spy satellite, but the rocket plunged into the sea. North Korea said the recent failure will not stop them to launch another spy satellite.
In South Korea now, the country's defense ministry lodges stern protest against China and Russia. Reports stated Chinese and Russian military planes entered South Korea's air defense identification zone unannounced. International norms say that the presence of the 4 Chinese and 4 Russian military aircraft did not violate the country's airspace since there are no international rules governing air defense zones. Still, Seoul scrambled their fighter jets as a response to Beijing and Moscow. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff explained the aircraft were expected to identify their presence when they enter the country's air defense zone. This protocol is to prevent accidental clashes or regional tensions. Japan also said it scrambled fighter jets in response to Chinese and Russian bomber planes. But China and Russia said they were just conducting a joint patrol exercise.
An attack on a major Russian-held dam in southern Ukraine on Tuesday unleashed a torrent of water that flooded 24 villages. The attack forced the evacuation of 17,000 people, sparking fears of a humanitarian disaster. Kimi Oria has more.
Washington warns there would likely be many deaths as Moscow and Kiev traded blame for ripping a gaping hole in the Kakhovka Dam. The dam is located on the front line and provides cooling water for Europe's largest nuclear plant. Kiev says the destruction of the dam is an attempt by Moscow to hamper its long-awaited offensive.
This is a terrorist act against Ukrainian critical infrastructure that aims at causing as many civilian casualties and as much destruction as possible.
The dam was seized by Russia in the early hours of the war. Ukraine's leader stressed, however, that the offensive would not be affected. The UN warns that hundreds of thousands could be affected on both sides of the front line.
The sheer magnitude of the catastrophe will only become fully realized in the coming days. But it's already clear that it will have grave and far-reaching consequences for thousands of people in southern Ukraine on both sides of the front line through the loss of homes, food, safe water, and livelihoods.
People in Kherson headed for higher ground as water poured into the Dnipro River. Kherson is the largest population center nearby. Ukrainian authorities said 17,000 people were being evacuated. A total of 24 villages had been flooded. Kimi Oria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
China urged Ukraine and Russia to ensure that the damage to Kakhovka Dam will not endanger the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
我们注意到有关的报道，对卡霍夫卡水电站堤坝被破坏表示严重关切，对由此造成的人道、经济和生态影响深感担忧。我们呼吁所有冲突当事方遵守国际人道法，全力保护平民和民用设施安全。中方关于乌克兰危机的立场是一贯明确的。当前形势下，希望各方致力于政治解决乌克兰危机，共同推动局势缓和。
China's ambassador to the UN, Zhang Jun, echoes Wang's statement. Zhang says the Kakhovka reservoir is a major source of cooling water for Europe's largest atomic power plant. He voices his concern, saying the water in the reservoir continues to recede. He says it may not be possible to continue pumping water to the nuclear power plant in the future. Zhang reiterates China's position that no one can stay immune in the event of a nuclear disaster. He says the safety and security of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plants should be maintained. He also urged other nations to avoid words and deeds that could escalate confrontation.
Envoys from the US, UK, and Russia to the United Nations react to the destruction of a Russian-held dam in southern Ukraine. Deputy British Ambassador to the UN, James Kariuki, says any deliberate attack on civilian infrastructure would be a war crime. This, he tells reporters ahead of an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council.
Now, our intelligence agencies are looking into this, but you wouldn't expect me to get ahead of the evidence, but obviously we'll share what we can when we can. But in the meantime, we're very clear that we've seen Russia use false flag operations in the past, and we expect them to do so in the future. Any attack, deliberate attack on civilian infrastructure would be a war crime.
As Moscow and Kyiv trade blame for the damage to the dam, Russian envoy Vasily Nebenzia calls the accusations a disinformation campaign.
We wanted an inquiry on many things, like Bucha or Nord Stream, for example. It never happened. This time, it should not be repeated. I will speak about it when I make mistake.
What kind of inquiry could be set up
to investigate what really happened? I already see coordinated information campaign in the press and by the Western officials, rather disinformation campaign, saying that Russia did it.
U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, says looking at attribution must be taken into account.
I think we want to point to the fact that, Russia occupies this part of Ukraine, and that it has responsibilities under the Geneva Convention. But we obviously need to find out more. But again, I emphasize the fact that when people are looking at attribution, one has to say, why would Ukraine do this to its own people? So it's something to take into account.
The UN Security Council elects 5 new non-permanent members. These countries are Algeria, Guyana, Republic of Korea, Sierra Leone, and Slovenia. They will join the premier body for maintaining international peace and security starting in January. They will be serving for a period of 2 years. Iran reopened its embassy in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, marking another milestone toward restoring ties and lowering tensions between the powerful Gulf neighbors. It comes 7 years after the two cut off diplomatic ties in a rivalry that had a chilling effect across the region. The reopened embassy could ease travel between the countries as they work to resume direct flights, increase trade, and restore business ties. Although Saudi Arabia has not yet reopened its embassy in Tehran, Iranian pilgrims will be able to apply more easily for Saudi visas once ties are fully restored.
اولین مطلبشون که ما امسال 2 برابر سال گذشته حاجی ایرانی داشتیم. امسال 87500 نفر حاجی ایرانی مشرف شدن به مکه مکرمه و اعمال حجشون رو به جا خواهند آورد. روابط تو کشور فکر می‌کنیم تأثیر بر در حقیقت عمره مفرده هم خواهد داشت و در این زمینه هم زائران ایرانی بیشتری به عربستان سعودی مشرف خواهند شد.
The two countries agreed in March to restore ties in a deal brokered by China, though both sides had been in Iraqi and Omani-mediated talks for years prior.
We consider today an important day in the relation between the Islamic Republic of Iran and Saudi Arabia. We are confident with the rehoisting of the flag of the Islamic Republic of Iran in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the hoisting of the flag of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the Islamic Republic of Iran, the cooperation between the two countries enter in the new era.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on his first bilateral visit to Saudi Arabia as the top U.S. diplomat. State Department spokesperson Matt Miller said that the meeting between Blinken and the Crown Prince had affirmed their shared commitment to advance stability, security, and prosperity across the Middle East and beyond, including through a comprehensive political agreement to achieve peace, prosperity, and security in Yemen. Ending the war in Yemen was one of the first expressed foreign policy goals of the Biden administration. The U.S. seeks to expand the UN-brokered ceasefire into a broader political agreement between Saudi Arabia and the Houthi rebels.
For months, Mexican Foreign Affairs Secretary Marcelo Ebrard has been juggling his foreign policy duties and pre-campaign activities. He is among the 3 leading aspirants for the presidential nomination of the ruling Morena party. He has expressed his intention to resign from his position next week to dedicate himself to seeking the endorsement of President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador's party to be its presidential candidate in next year's election. The other leading contenders for the party's nomination are Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum and Interior Minister Adán Augusto López. The president met with the pre-candidates Monday in an effort to maintain party unity. López Obrador has said he will stay out of the decision, but his comments are monitored for any sign of favor as he continues to enjoy high approval ratings more than 4 years into his 6-year term. This means whoever Morena chooses as its candidate is expected to be the front runner in next year's presidential election. Up next, police arrest the teenage tractor driver after being involved in a car crash in England. In the U.S., a high school graduation shooter leaves 2 dead and 5 injured. And divers fish for discarded nets in Greece. Please don't go away. We have more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Counterpoint. She became Mrs. Universe Philippines in 2018. Miss Charo Calalo Lode.
Ang hirap sagutin, no? Kasi ang daming definition ng essence of being a woman.
Tinaguriang first of its kind beauty pageant sa bansa at sa buong Asia, kung saan kababayang may special needs ang mga kandidato. Ngayong Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito lang sa Net 25. Susunod na presidente ng bansa after Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is Inday Sara Duterte. Walang iba.
This sport
In the Nigerian village of Rakadutse, a mass funeral is held for the 30 victims of a violent attack that took place last weekend. 6 villages were raided by armed men in the country's northern region. This region is regularly hit by criminal violence and clashes between communities over grazing and water rights. Residents from two of the affected villages say the attacks are reprisal for their refusal to pay protection money to the bandits. This latest violence is another chapter in the unrest in the region.
People protest against Peruvian President Dina Boluarte in front of the prosecutor's office in Lima. Boluarte is being questioned over the death of anti-government protesters since nationwide clashes started in December last year. The death started following an attempted coup by former President Pedro Castillo. Peru has been embroiled in a political crisis since Castillo was ousted and arrested last year. He has been charged with rebellion for trying to dissolve Congress and rule by decree. Boluarte took over as president but has faced calls to resign by protesters also demanding a round of free elections. In England, police arrest a teenage driver after being involved in a car accident. 19-year-old Tyler Sowerby was under the influence of narcotics while operating a tractor that crushed an oncoming car. The driver was not injured in the resulting crash. Sowerby was admitted in a United Kingdom court for 2 drug driving offenses, which burst on last February. Sowerby was sentenced to 8 weeks in prison with a 12-month suspension. The teen must complete rehabilitation requirements, including a maximum of 10 days' work at the probation service, 60 hours of unpaid labor. He was also placed on a 3-year driving ban.
Atlanta City Council voted in favor of funding for a large new law enforcement training facility after 14 hours of public outrage. The law enforcement training facility, dubbed as Cop City, has raised concerns among citizens over police violence and environmental impact. In a vote on Tuesday, the Atlanta City Council approved the sum of $90 million for that project by an 11-4 margin, following 14 hours of public protest during the council's town hall, much of which denounced necessity of the facility. Mayor Andre Dickens said the vote was a major milestone for better police and emergency responders to protect and serve the community. Cobra data shows that the city of Atlanta has significantly decreased from 130 violent crimes per day per 10,000 population average of the past decade to 60 in 2021. However, 2022 saw an uptick to 62, an increase of less than 1%.
2 people were killed and 5 were injured during a shooting near a high school graduation in the U.S. state of Virginia, the latest in mass shootings plaguing the country. The incident took place outside a theater around 5 in the afternoon, where students from Virginia Commonwealth University were celebrating their graduation. The shooting leaves 2 dead, including an 18-year-old graduate and a 36-year-old man, and 5 injured, with 1 remaining in critical condition. A 19-year-old suspect fled the scene but was soon arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Several handguns were recovered from the scene. Reports did not name a possible motive for the crime but said the suspect knew at least one of the victims.
In Pennsylvania, the implosion of 2 smokestacks causes damage to nearby homes. One tower stood about 170 meters tall, while the other stands at 230 meters. Local officials say that the implosion brought an air blast, breaking windows and blowing dust into residential areas. Authorities say several power poles and their wires were destroyed, leading to a power surge that damaged electrical appliances. The demolition company vows for full repairs.
Wildfire smoke coming from Quebec, Canada covers New York's iconic skyline. The National Weather Service issues an air quality alert for the city. Officials warn U.S. that Canada faces a dire wildfire situation through the coming months. This comes after vast swaths of forest and grasslands from its Pacific to Atlantic coast have been scorched. Some 26,000 people remain displaced by the fires, from westernmost British Columbia to Nova Scotia on the east coast. That is about 3.3 million hectares or 8.2 million acres of land that have burned so far.
A Canadian climate activist is ready to put up his feet after taking a long walk. 60-year-old Craig Cohen hiked more than 4,000 kilometers from London, England, through Europe to Istanbul, Turkey. Chantel Santos tells us more.
Craig Cohen calls his campaign Walk It Back. He says his mission is to promote carbon capture. He says he wants to offset his lifetime carbon footprint. Cohen describes himself as a former fossil fuel dinosaur who has since seen the error of his ways. He says he wants to raise awareness about the impact of climate change and to promote a carbon-neutral lifestyle. The businessman turned activist went through a lot of shoe leather during the 153 days trek. Cohen traveled through 14 countries and 82 towns and cities. He finished up in the Turkish capital Monday, which is also World Environmental Day and his 60th birthday. Chantal Santos from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Divers are scouring the Aegean Sea off the coast of Greece for abandoned nets. Environmentalists say the discarded fishing gear is detrimental to the fish stock. Julian Bukayan tells us more.
The abandoned nets under the Aegean Sea are like fish traps. They ensnare marine life, sweeping up thousands of fish. Volunteer divers descended to a depth of 45 meters off the Greek island of Santorini to drag out nets, tires, and plastic bags from the water. The nets are a huge problem worldwide. They account for about 10% of the marine litter found on the ocean floor. In the past 5 years, divers with the environmental group Aegean Rebreath have removed more than 28 tons of nets from the sea. Julian Bukayan for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The United Nations Cultural Agency UNESCO welcomes commitments from Australia to protect the Great Barrier Reef. The Australian government pledged $2.9 billion to the effort to safeguard the natural wonder. Arlene Ocampo has the details.
What happens to the reef has been a source of tension between UNESCO and Australian authorities in recent years. UNESCO has threatened to put the world's largest coral system on a list of endangered global heritage sites. However, fresh commitments from the Labour government of Anthony Albanese made in a letter drew praise from the UN agency. In a statement, UNESCO says it welcomes Australia's decision to implement urgent new protection measures to safeguard the Great Barrier Reef recommended by the agency.
When you do make commitments in this sense, it is an important aspect that all countries around the world need to adhere to protect these places. But it is definitely setting a standard of how a lot of other marine protected areas around the world, heritage listed or not, should move forward.
The new protection measures include that gillnets are to be phased out by 2027. This in a bid to conserve fish populations and prevent the deaths of turtles and dolphins. Gill nets are vertical nets that can be up to 1 kilometer long. Australia's Environment Ministry also pledges combined investment of $2.9 billion from the state Queensland and federal governments to protect the reef. Arlene Ocampo from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, PGA Tour agrees to merge with Live Golf Circuit. Spanish phenom Carlos Alcaraz to face Novak Djokovic in the French Open 2023 semis. And Girl from Ipanema Astrid Gilberto dies at 83. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be back.
The Professional Golfers Association, or PGA Tour, announced a merger with a Saudi-backed Live Golf Circuit, ending their 2-year civil war. The two entities signed an agreement that would combine the PGA Tour and Live Golf's commercial businesses and rights into a new for-profit company. The PGA Tour commissioner said that it was a historic day after 2 years of disruption and distraction. The two organizations had filed a series of antitrust claims against the other in recent months. Live Golf sued the PGA Tour, alleged anti-competitive practices for banning its players from competing. PGA Tour countersued, claiming Live was stifling the competition, where disputes ensued regarding the discovery process for evidence. The deal ends all pending litigation between the feuding parties, although other details are yet to be disclosed. The name of the newly merged entity and the precise structure of the tours has yet to be announced.
NBA star Jordan Clarkson and naturalized player Justin Brownlee lead the Agila's 21-man pool for FIBA World Cup. Clarkson and Brownlee will be joined by some of the PBA stars Junmar Fajardo, Scotty Thompson, CJ Perez, and Japeth Aguilar. Also part of the initial roster are Dwight Ramos, Kiefer and 30 Ravenna, and Bobby Ray Parks Jr. Gilas also tapped the 7'3" Kai Soto and the other naturalized player Anje Kwame. The historic hosting of the Philippines will kick off its campaign on August 25 in the Philippine Arena against the Dominican Republic, before facing Angola and Italy on August 27 and 29 respectively at the Big Dome. Philippine pole vaulter EJ Obiena resumed his outdoor campaign by taking third place in the 5th Irina Shawinska Memorial in Poland. Obiena cleared 5.72 meters to a joint third place with USA Olympian Sam Kendricks. He tried to register 5.82 meters but failed after 3 tries. Chris Nielsen of the U.S. won the gold after clearing 5.92 meters, while Piotr Lisek of Poland placed second with 5.82. It was Obiena's first competition since the 32nd SEA Games in Cambodia last month, where he won the gold medal. Obiena will next compete in the Bergen Jump Challenge on June 10 in Norway. In the French Open 2023, Carlos Alcaraz will face Novak Djokovic in the semifinals. This after Alcaraz survived a third set skirmish against the Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas. He dispatched Tsitsipas in 3 sets, 6-2, 6-1, and 7-6. Djokovic, meanwhile, defeated Karen Khachanov of Russia before moving on to the next round. He defeated Khachanov in 4 sets, 4-6, 7-6, 6-2, and 6-4. With their respective wins, Alcaraz and Djokovic will square off in a blockbuster French Open semifinal. The game will be on Friday, where it will set records for the two superstars. World number 1 Spaniard Alcaraz is chasing his second Grand Slam after winning the U.S. Open last year, while the veteran Serbian Djokovic is aiming for a record-breaking 23rd men's single major title. American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift unveils details on her Speak Now Taylor's Version album. After months of speculation, Taylor dropped hints about the album, which will arrive on July 7. It included names and a song list with collaborations featuring Fall Out Boy and Paramore's Hayley Williams. The album shows Swift posing in a flowing purple dress and ballet slippers. Re-recorded versions of all 14 songs from the original Speak Now will also appear on the new version, with 2010's Superman and Ours.
Astrud Gilberto has died at the age of 83. One of Brazil's biggest stars of the 1960s and the 70s, she recorded 16 albums and worked with artists ranging from Quincy Jones to Stan Getz. She is survived by her granddaughter, Sofia Gilberto, who broke the news of her death on an Instagram post, which reads, "I'm here to bring you the sad news that my grandmother became a star today and is next to my grandfather, Joao Gilberto." Her rendition of The Girl from Ipanema sold more than 5 million copies and helped to popularize bossa nova.
While some businesses shut down because of the pandemic, one hairstylist made the leap to open her own salon. With her newfound success, she looks to pay it forward. She's participating in a program that uses donated hair to make wigs for cancer patients. In Simi Valley, California, Eva Basalyaje has the story.
The 10 to 12 inches of hair in this bag, it's on its way to Locks of Love, a nonprofit organization that makes wigs for cancer patients from donated hair, which in this case is mine.
One of the best parts of Locks of Love is when you come in and you cut off your hair, it is completely a donation. It's absolutely free. We do it out of the goodness of our hearts. It's part of the process, and we absolutely love it. We're giving it to people, kids, women, children, whoever, to make wigs for people with cancer. And that's a huge thing. It's a huge deal, and always willing to help any way I can.
Heard of it? Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, for those that have hair to donate, I don't have very much. If it was ever asked, I'd be like, sure, you can have a couple inches of hair. Like, I don't know what I can give, but for those that have hair and want to donate it, absolutely. Yeah, it's fantastic. I wouldn't cut my own hair. I tend to feel like I care a little bit more about my hair and my style, and I don't like to see it messed up. I go to work every day. I don't really work from home very much. And plus, it gives me a reason to get out and go see my stylist.
Looking back, the pandemic shaped people's outlook, whether on a small scale or by a large degree.
I just didn't get cuts for a while. That's all it turned out for me. I just went kind of raggedy for a while for the pandemic.
The pandemic definitely accelerated me being able to open my own business. It did help because a lot of places did have to close and whatnot, and it kind of gave me the motivation to be able to open and do things, and when other places we couldn't. I'm very grateful and very blessed that I was able to open the business and work hard every day to keep it open.
Many hair salons had to shut down due to the pandemic, but as is often the case, necessity helps others to take a leap forward to pursue a dream that had previously been put on hold. Reporting from Simi Valley, California, Eva Basalyaje for Matan ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Already halfway through the week, Gianna. To help you get through what remains, here's a quote from former Baroness Jane Goodall, DBE, an English primatologist and anthropologist. I think empathy is really important, and I think only when our clever brain and our human heart work together in harmony can we achieve our full potential.
It's all about your whole character. It's so important.
Love the lady, love her advocacy, love her heart.
I love it. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. Stay tuned for tonight's episode of Counterpoint with Attorney Salvador Panelo and Mrs. Universe Philippines 2018, Charo Calalo Laude. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.